Welcome, Voice of San Diego, Friday 5, live at 5. My name's Scott Lewis. What a week. We got a lot to talk about. They just announced that Disneyland can open. Yay. I'm not a big amusement park guy. They exhaust me. Crowds scare me. It's not easy to do, but I'm glad for all those Disneyland fans. But the big news for us, of course, the Padres, you can go see them. It sounds like if we can get into the red tier, 8,000 or so fans are going to be allowed in. That's crazy. They're going to have fans at Petco Park before they have the schools open. Maybe that we could have school at Petco Park. How about that? All right, we've got a lot to talk about today. Let's get right into it. Schools. Yes, they're still aiming for April 12th for San Diego Unified School District. There's several others that may open around the same time. North County Schools, Tasha Berner Horvath, who represents the North County coastal area in the assembly, she says all the schools in North County will be open. Congratulations, North County. We're getting a little bit mixed messages about other parts of the region and whether they will be able to hit those same targets. We're not sure what this week. We got a hold, our Will Huntsberry got a hold, in fact, of the Teachers Union San Diego Education Association email sent to its own members. And they said, quote, media coverage in the past few days has fixated on the potential date of returning, because it's kind of a big deal. But yes, we have fixated on the date of returning as opposed to the safety criteria that would allow us such a return. Remember, the vaccines must be available and accessible to all San Diego Education Association members who want them. Number 2, our county must fall out of the purple tier. The governor, conveniently for that metric, by the way, this week, made the red tier the better one from the purple tier. By the way, what a bad outcome for purple, right? When has purple ever been the worst? They didn't make any of the tiers green, but purple got the bad one. Anyway, purple is now they're going to move the tiers up. Basically, the theory is that if we are getting all these folks inoculated, and they're the folks most susceptible to going to the hospital and dying from COVID-19, then our hospitalizations will go down. And since the whole point of lockdowns and other control measures and collective action is to keep the hospital capacity there, to maintain it, to maintain the health workers and their sanity and their ability to serve everybody, if the hospitalizations go down, we can actually handle more spread of the virus. That's the theory behind that. The governor made this deal this week to change the tier, and the tiers matter again for schools. Again, the second thing they want to see is to get us out of the purple tier. And then the third, the teachers union said, is the strict on-site mitigations being in place at every school site. Now let's talk about that for a second. Strict mitigations on site. If you're a fan of this show, if you've seen me talk, you know how obsessed I am with the air. The air is what matters. So when they talk about strict mitigation on site, I'm a little concerned that we're going to have a bunch of performative sanitation measures like disinfectants. We're going to have like plexiglass, when in fact, all we need to really be caring about is the air. The virus spreads through the air. When we talk, like I'm spewing a bunch of droplets. They're all falling to the ground, but a bunch of others are going into the air. If there was somebody in here sitting with me over a prolonged period of time, no matter where they were in the room, they would breathe some of that in, especially how loud and manly my voice is. It comes out so amplified, and the aerosols go everywhere. I'm sorry, that was bad. There's nothing good. That was whatever. The aerosols going around. People breathe those in. That's how they get sick. So we need to be focused on the air. I wrote a piece about it again this week. Let's clear the air, and the best way to reopen schools, as we talk about those mitigation measures that need to happen to open schools, we need to focus almost exclusively on the air. Now, this week, there was a professor in Ontario who allowed me to use his video he created about why some of those plexiglass structures are not necessarily good. The only thing they're good for is if you were sitting right here in front of me and it would stop some of my droplets. If I sneezed or coughed, those droplets would come and hit that, and maybe that would be okay. But otherwise, it's not good. They're not good. And if you're wearing a mask, that should eliminate most of those heavy droplets, all those heavy droplets. But if you do too much plexiglass in your area, you see what happened there? The canyons of the plexiglass or the barriers can create pooling of the aerosols. You do not want pooling of the aerosols. So when you're like, hey, what are you doing to protect schools? And you show me a bunch of plexiglass, what I'm seeing in my head is this. I don't want pooling. No pooling. Let's not do pooling of the aerosols. All right, the other big news this week, AB 86. The governor and the legislature agreed on the bill that provide several $1 billion to school districts across the state, in addition to the funding they get normally, to help them with A, reopening schools, and B, helping with learning loss and other problems that they've faced and their children and their students have faced because of the pandemic and the shutdowns. AB 86. Now it says you get $2 billion just to help you reopen schools if you open by April 1st. And every day after that, you lose 1%. Until, if you wait till May, you don't get anything. So this is a huge deal, and a lot of people were talking about it. Republicans and Democrats mostly just joined together to pass it. Here was the Republican leader, though, of the Senate. He made this point I wanted to talk about.
The truth is, AB 86 doesn't do anything to reopen our schools. I believe with or without this bill, school districts that want to reopen will, and school districts that don't want to reopen won't. So if this is not a school reopening bill, what is it? I believe it's a CYA maneuver by Governor Newsom to get parents to believe he's doing everything he possibly can for them. So this morning, I will be reluctantly voting for AB 86 because my school districts need the funding to meet safety protocols.
So this bad bill doesn't do anything to open schools, but I'm going to support it. Okay. So the major contention among folks like him is that these guys, the governor, could just force schools to open, that he could just say, you are open now, I declare. But the problem with that is that when labor is opposed to them opening, labor has the power to not work. That's the point of collective labor, right? They get to decide when they work. Now, we didn't ask. Mackenzie Mays at Politico did a great job asking all of the Republican candidates, including former Mayor Kevin Faulconer from San Diego, whether he would support getting rid of collective bargaining for employees like teachers so that they could just tell them what to do. And he said no. So I don't know what they're talking about when they say, like, you could just declare schools open. They must open. I think that's why we're in. When you respect their right to organize and be a union and collectively act, then you have to respect their power in this situation, which is that they don't want to work or don't want to go into the school to work and open these campus communities. So this is the situation we're at. We think April 12th seems pretty good. The school district San Diego Unified Board member trustee Richard Barrera insisted that they can meet that goal, that they can get teachers and students onto campuses April 12th, but they have said nothing about what it'll look like, what are the hours, what days exactly will they go back. Principals seem to not know any of these answers. They haven't revealed exactly what they've done for the air, for all these things. They haven't revealed exactly what they're going to expect teachers to do to teach online and in person. It's still bananas to me that they teach both in person and online. They need to separate those two duties. That seems like a very difficult thing for one teacher to handle. And I do not think that is good for anybody's mental health over the next few weeks. Regardless, they haven't told us any of that. And now they're sending out, I just received the survey saying, hey, do you want to go back to school? Well, you haven't answered any of those questions. You should answer those questions, and it might be easier for us to say if we want to go back. Now, obviously, we're going to say we want to go back because I don't want to go back. But you can't just say like, hey, this whole maybe going back, what do you think? Without telling us what you're going to do to make it safe, what you're going to do to make the teachers not go crazy with all this responsibility. Come on. Let's communicate. Let's talk about this. Let's let this out. I'm going to pull up this survey. Okay. Log in. Oh, you have to do it. Okay, never mind. Woo. Looks a little complicated. All right, let's go on to number 2. So we talked about this on the podcast today. Reporters always end their interviews with people, and they always say, is there anything else you'd like to say? And most of the time, the people being interviewed say like, no, and then they actually dump about a bunch of stuff. It's sometimes the best stuff you get is when you say, is there anything else you'd like to say? So every reporter almost always will say, is there anything else you'd like to say? Well, Andrew Bowen at KPBS did that this week with Council President, San Diego City Council President Jennifer Campbell, who you might remember a few months ago won that seat as Council President after a very intense and painful public hearing about who should be council president, and she overcame Monica Montgomery's step for that seat in a very racially charged, intense, painful meeting. So Andrew Bowen's interviewing her ostensibly about her recall and what she's facing with the constituents that want to get her out of office. And he says to her, is there anything else you would like to add? And rather than say no, she decided she wanted to bring up this fight again.
The council presidency is an administrative post, and it is usually done behind the scenes. It is voted upon only by council members.
Okay. Usually, it's not a great idea for a politician to talk about things that should be done behind the scenes. There's rarely a circumstance where that needs to be said out loud as a thing to be touted. Okay? Now, let's separate something out here. We're not talking about illegality, all right? There is a Brown Act that says that you cannot make a decision as a city council, for example, without a public hearing. And thus, you can't just like talk to your brethren, your colleagues behind the scenes and make a deal and then come to the public meeting and make it real. That's called a serial meeting. That's called an illegal action under California's open meetings law called the Brown Act. I'm going to stipulate that they covered their bases. They didn't actually violate the Brown Act. That's not what we're talking about here. Just the very idea that you have to tell people that, hey, this should be done behind the scenes. We shouldn't do it. Now, remember what she's referring to there is that Monica Montgomery ran for council president and decided that the public should be involved in this, that she should make her case publicly, line up supporters, and get people to endorse her and to make the case for why she should be council president. This was obviously uncomfortable for people who did it, usually behind the scenes. And that's what she is trying to explain. Here's more.
This is a circus. This should be done behind the scenes. This is a city council matter. This is 9 people voting. This has nothing to do with the public or a public election. This is an administrative position only.
This has nothing to do with the public. What? What the city council does absolutely has something to do with the public, and who leads the council and what they want to do with the council absolutely has something to do with the public. Are you kidding? What are you thinking? Why would you say this? Why are you doing this? What is the purpose of what you're doing? Why would we do this right now? It doesn't make any sense. Why she would pick this fight right now, why it feels intensely passionate about how we, the public, shouldn't be involved in who leads the city. It's crazy. It's so crazy that this was something she decided she wanted to bring up. I'm sorry. Part of what gets me fired up is that we were the ones who covered this as a public discussion because it was, in a way, fascinating and wonderful to have a debate about what should be done in that role, because the council president isn't an administrative position. It's not like a secretary that just like decides when the meetings are or whatever. This person decides what gets to get voted on. It is the most important policy position at the city. The mayor is supposed to be just the executor of the policy. Yes, he comes up with ideas. He's a very powerful person, but the council president was supposed to be the lead legislator, the lead policymaker of the city. Our direction as a city is dependent on who that person is. When they decided that the mayor should no longer be a member of the city council, but instead should be a member of, or should be the leader, the executive of the city staff, we used to say, okay, that's called a strong mayor form of government. They said, no. This is actually a strong mayor and strong council form of government. And I'd be like, oh, okay. So the council is equal to the mayor in this. And they'd be like, yes. It's a very powerful position. In fact, if you think about it, the council president is what the mayor used to be, the leader of the council. It's a big job. It's a big political job. It is not a mere administrative role. You get to decide whether things like minimum wage happen, whether like vast changes to the law about where homes can be built happen. You get to decide all of those things, whether they go up to a vote or not. And to act like it was not a public decision, I mean, it is. It's our city. This is our city. It was a wild fight to pick. Now look, that world have been steaming for months that this became a public thing. They're mad at Monica Montgomery for taking it to the public as like a campaign. Her supporters put up a website. They made it clear that it was camp. I know that they're mad about it because I've heard about it. They don't want this to have been thing. They want it to be something that is decided among special interests and people at City Hall when that decision comes up. I understand that. And she's sitting there saying, yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be. And she's stewing in that. And as our friend Andrew Keats said, like she probably hears it so much, she's like, hey, you guys should consider that maybe this isn't a public
thing. This is a circus. This should be done behind the scenes. This is a city council matter. This is 9 people voting. This has nothing to do with the public.
This has nothing to do with the public. I think Jen Campbell has done some really courageous things as the member representing the coastal district. Like, it's very hard to take on the issues she's taken on. And I understand that she's fired up and kind of hurt by all these things that happened when she got elected. But first of all, she won. Let it lie. Let it lie. And then second of all, why? What do you get out of this? What is the actual point here that you shouldn't be discussing, that Monica Montgomery and people who support her need to be scolded at this moment for having brought this to the public's attention? Why? You won. This public thing happened and you won. You got what everybody who wanted what they wanted got what they wanted out of this situation, except for Monica Montgomery. And you're the one that has to bring this up. It blew me away. That's why it blew me away. I'm sorry. It's Friday, a little fired up. Whoa. I couldn't believe it.
This is a circus.
All right. Number 3. Okay. This was extremely upsetting. This week, we received, everybody received, the city of San Diego released footage of an officer encounter in downtown with a homeless man, and the whole thing shows the officer approaching this homeless man who's eating, and this is what happened.
Okay, do me a favor. I need you to go ahead and put that down.
What?
Okay. No!
Come on, I'm not going to take it away from
Get
you.
away from me!
Come on.
Don't touch me!
Oh,
Back
don't go
off.
this way.
Why did you make such a mess, sir?
He said somebody knocked his cart over. Hey, you got a knife in your back pocket. Do not grab that knife.
Jesus Christ, I didn't... Holy fuck! Oh my...
This was very upsetting video, obviously horrific. There was a law passed last year, AB 392, and it said officers should only use lethal force only when necessary. That was a big change from like, could it be justified, to only when necessary. I don't know that there's any way you can make the case. Now, there's a process, there's hearings, there's all kinds of things that need to happen. But how do you make the case that that was necessary in that moment, that that is the outcome we wanted to see in that situation? There is that whole video, the homeless man, the trash, the violence. How are we not every night horrified by our city that this is part of it? This is just part of it. This is just part of it. The poverty, the filth, the violence, it's just what we have. This is the city of San Diego. It's so bad. This was a member of the Neighborhood Policing Division. Now, our Lisa Halverstadt was on the ball talking. She's already been doing research about enforcement in the homeless communities right now. She asked the mayor about this shooting. He says, quote, this is Mayor Todd Gloria, I think the video speaks for itself, and I certainly have strong opinions about it. I recognize it's a part of a defined process now. We'll see what happens. But we certainly have lots of work to do. There's a, now I read that as this part saying like, I think it speaks for itself. I certainly have strong opinions about it. I think what he's saying there is what we all saw. It's like, it's there. That's what we all saw. We all saw that. Now, and he has to say, but look, I got to wait for some process to go out. And a lot of people brought it up, said like, I think you're reading way too much. I don't think he's saying anything about that. Maybe not. Maybe he's not making a statement about that. And I think there's probably something to that. And he probably needs to make clear like what he is going to do to deal with this situation. But what a horrific encounter! What a horrific video, and just a horrific testament of where we are as a city. So we will be following that closely, and the future of the neighborhood policing experience. It's part of our proud history of policing in San Diego. We came up with the concept, but does it need to be adjusted? Is it going to continue? What is happening? Terrible. All right, number 4. Our Maya Krishnan did a story this week about whether people have the access to the parks they need. As we discussed on this show when we did the debate about the 79th Assembly District and who's going to represent it, that 79th Assembly District in San Diego, in the San Diego region, does not have a state park. One of the few across the region, across the state, that doesn't have a state park. Check out this map. This is a survey that San Diego County did of park analysis of access to parks. And you'll see that the lack of access to 8 acres of parkland per 1,000 people corresponds really closely to those areas that also have a lot of poor people or people who are making less than the median wage, and predominant areas of, where people of color are living. So she did a great story, I thought, this week, kind of examining at least one bill, what it does and doesn't do, from Senator Ben Weso to try to make this a priority to change. Check it out, voiceofsandiego.org. All right, number 5. We're going to end today on a positive. The vaccines are going out the door. We are getting them into arms. 1 million doses have been handed out. That's not 1 million people. 1 million doses have been dosed in the arms across the city. 1 million doses, and it looks good. Let's check out some of these numbers. Sorry for the barking dog, if you can hear that. Life here still continues. All right. Oops. Let's see. There we go. Look at that. 1 million doses. 22%, 23% of San Diego has gotten at least one dose. 11.3% have gotten both doses of the vaccine. I gotta laugh. Nathan Fletcher, county supervisor, is really stoked on this. Put up a a baller video on his Instagram stories.
Your money.
But look, the vaccine is, and the delivery of the vaccine, I gotta say, I've spent time at the Super Vaccination Center at the Chula Vista place, the Chula Vista old Sears. I used to work at a Sears, by the way. I sold TVs, I had earrings, and I sold VCRs. Remember VCRs? It was when the Macarena was hot, so they would always play the Macarena on TV. That's the time period we're talking about here. And I was a salesman at Sears. They pushed us really hard to sell maintenance agreements. Those were like the extended warranty kind of things. We would get 10% commission for selling those things. That's how beneficial it was to the company for us to sell them. Anyway, I worked at a Sears. The Chula Vista Super Vaccination Center is at an empty Sears that is no longer around. A Sears that has died. And it is a wonderful site. It is such a great place. It's so well operated. The people who come up, 99.9% of them are grateful. They're smiling. They're just, something good is happening. The volunteers, there's pom-poms. I waved pom-poms for a while. That's what I did for a little while. So go this way. I would tell people, I would say, do you want to go to Moderna Town? They'd say, uh-huh. I'd say, well, you got to go down the Moderna highway here. And they'd be like, all right. And one lady, this volunteer came up to me later, and this lady said, she comes up to me, she says, there was a lady back there who was worried. She was wondering if she'd gotten to Moderna Town. And I was like, yes. Anyway, but I also speak Spanish, and I was out front. About 50, 60% of the people who come, they ask for, they need to speak Spanish. I'm there. It was fun. Just a good feeling. And you can't help but notice that this is a historic thing, right? We're going to remember these big places that our country, that our county, that our companies set up to inoculate people from this deadly virus. And they're special places. And I think we should all recognize that something really good is happening as we take care of each other. And if you want a good experience, go down to one of these sites and volunteer or hang out. I haven't gotten my vaccine yet. That was part, I think some volunteers are getting vaccines. I haven't had that. So, but I think that that arrangement's worked out for some folks as well. But also, like, it was just, I took a week off and I did that in the middle of the week. And that was probably the most restorative thing I had done. It was nice to be useful in a different way, right? I'm useful most days for my job and family and stuff, but it was nice to be useful in a different way. And if you want to just feel good about something, those places are the places. I'm very impressed. Sharp, UC San Diego, City of San Diego, County of San Diego, everybody operating those sites. Congratulations on your millionth dose. And anyway, quite a moment in our history. Let's check this last thing out. I always like to show the hospitalizations chart. This is it. Look at this. Just plummeting. So good. So great. Very proud of everybody. We're going to get our vaccines. We're going to go to the Padres game. We're going to go to Legoland. We're going to get our life back. Let's just keep working. Wear a mask. Focus on the air. Clean the air. If you're worried about being safe, get fans. Get filters. Don't put up plexiglass. Don't put up plexiglass. All right, let's check out your comments before I go. Who boy, did I miss? All right. Perry Story, did I miss the council president discussion? Yeah, I went off. Sorry, you might want to rewind for that one. You especially. What's what's CYA? All right. Cover your, assets. There you go. All right. Okay, there's a couple of recall points. Barry Story says, yes, we're talking about Council President here. Let sleeping dogs lie. I guess you caught up, Perry. Yes. All right. There's my buddy, Kim Prather. Yes, clean the air, right? Just clean the air. Highlight of my day. Thank you, Scott. Thank you. All right, folks, I got to turn the politics report in. Always great to be with you every week. Let's enjoy our weekend. Wear your mask, stay safe, get your vaccines, and support each other, and we'll get through this. We're almost to the end. Thank you all. Have a good weekend.